Okay, today we're going to be taking a look at how to use pencil crayons and some of their basic techniques. The one that most people are going to be familiar with is drawing with pencil pressure. And there's basically two ways of doing this. One is by pressing lightly and trying to get a fairly even and consistent layering of color. The other is to simply press as hard as you can so that you get a really nice solid finish. These two techniques tend to appear primarily in your stereotypical middle school title page drawing, for example. And it doesn't require a whole lot of thinking because all you're doing is using the colors straight out of the container. In an art classroom, we want to make sure that we are developing the color and expanding beyond the limited number of colors that are available in the set. This is where we start to get into our second technique, which is layering. So we're going to start with a lighter color. So I'm going to switch out, I'm going to grab a blue color, light blue, and I'm going to take a yellow. So I have my two colors, and we're going to layer these over top. So we're always going to start with the lighter color, the one that is lighter in value. And I'm going to put a layer of this color down over top of the paper. And I'm going to fill up the entire box with an even layer of color over the entire thing here. Once you have the consistent layer down, you're going to take your darker color and you are going to start to blend the two together. To do that, we're just going to take the blue here and layer it over top. And as you would expect with an understanding of basic color theory, when you mix yellow and blue together, you should start getting a green tone. Alright, so we have our standard drawing with pressure, we've got layering, and now we're going to talk about burnishing, and this is where you're going to need your white pencil crayon. And many people who pick up a pencil crayon box and they're drawing primarily on white paper can never really figure out what the white pencil crayon is for, but it's to actually do your burnishing. So, burnishing is taking this concept of the two drawing pressures, or even the layering of color, and getting the intensity of the color figured out and developed so that it looks a lot more finished than what you would get if you had just drawn lightly in the picture space. Okay, so I'm going to get that in here. I'm going to take my white pencil crayon and I'm going to burnish it over top. And this kind of fills in the tooth, blends your marks together a little bit and gives you more consistency. And the advantage here is because it's white, it essentially acts as a translucent layer. And you have the advantage of pressing hard with being able to control the value that you need. Alright, so I'm going to try that one again. So I'm going to do a little bit of layering of color. So I've got a pink that I'm putting down, and just for fun I'm going to add sort of a dark blue over top in order to change the tone a little bit. You'll notice that I am drawing in a slightly different direction in order to help fill up the tooth of the paper. I'm going to come back in with my pink. Right, and when you're doing your layering, you can do multiple layers, one over top of each other as well. Alright, so I have a nice pinky blue color, and then again with the white I can soften it out by burnishing with the white over top. A gradation of color uses the concept of different drawing pressures in order to create changes of value. So in this case, I'm going to start with the pink pencil crayon again. I'm going to start drawing lightly, and as I move across the box here, I'm going to gradually decrease my pressure, so I'm making less of a mark. And I'm going to continue to go back and forth over top of those areas, gradually releasing the pressure on my pencil crayon so that I get a smooth transition from one value to the next. The next one is blending color, and we're going to again take two colors this time. I'm going to use green, and let's use the blue one this time. And we're going to use the gradation of color technique, and I'm going to start with one color on one side, and I'm going to press fairly lightly, and I'm going to just gradually move this over to one side. Alright. Again, we're going to be slowly bringing this gradation across from one side to the next, and we want to get pretty much all the way over to the opposite side. And then, just so it makes it a little bit easier, I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to come back in the other direction as well. Alright, so I'm going to start on the side, and I'm going to bring my blue across, and as I come across the green now, I'm reducing pressure that I'm applying on the pencil crayon in order to create that gradation. The idea is that you are having the two colors blend together so that you cannot see the difference between the two colors. They become one. And this is going to require going back and forth a few times in order to get the color working really, really well. And you want to make sure that you're not starting too hard with your pencil pressure, because it will fill up the tooth of the paper, making it difficult for you to get an even transition from one color to the next. Alright, so the last one that we're going to do here is creating some form. And to do that, we're going to use this little diagram down at the bottom. Right now it's just a circle with an oval, and we're going to transfer this into a sphere with a cast shadow. So first thing we need to remember is that we have a light source. I'm going to have it coming this way because the shadow is going on in the direction here. Right? So highlight and shadow are opposite each other. And I'm going to be using a curved line, and I'm going to pretty much cover the whole thing in a soft yellow to get started. In order to create form like this, you're kind of having to use a variety of the different techniques that we did earlier to get everything coming through. Okay, so we got a base of yellow, and then I'm going to come in with a slightly darker tone, and I'm going to work around the highlight area, and I'm going to start to develop a little bit darker tones down towards the bottom. I like using a fairly loose, expressive, kind of almost scribbling technique to do this, but you can use your own style as well. And I'm gradually going to be increasing the darkness of the value here. I'm going to wrap that around a little bit. I want to make sure that I'm keeping the yellow in fairly well as here, down at the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to layer that yellow back in. I'm going to get sort of a contrasting color in order to help push up the darker tones. Again, changing the pressure on the pencil in order to make sure that it is transitioning from one value to the next with some fluidity. I'm going to put a little bit of the red over top. Okay, and I'm going to start creating my deeper shadow on the sphere. Keeping in mind that the underside should be just a little bit lighter than the darkest part of on the sphere because of the reflected light. Okay, and then coming in here with the cast shadow, I'm going to press fairly hard. Right? I am not using black because black tends to really flatten everything out. Keeping with some color will add some interest to the work as well. Right? But I can use the black in order to just add a little bit of a tone to it. And here we go. So we grab the black, we'll layer that in over top of that darker red. And put a little bit of tone into the sphere as well. Okay. And this is looking a little bit stepped, so I'm going to try and add a little bit more on the sides here, bring it back in some of those blues. And when you're drawing like this, it's about going back and forth with your different colors as well in order to create that layering of color, which creates really nice visual depth in your drawings. Okay, so now we have a sphere. Okay, so quick review. You've got drawing pressure, layering of colors, burnishing, using the white pencil crayon. You've got your gradation of color. You can blend two colors together, and once you combine all of those different techniques, you've got your ability to create a sense of form.